What's up, guys? This is Nate from Daily Driver Media. I'm here with Rome Charpentier, new Pro 1 driver this year. Super excited to have you on the podcast, bud. You want to give them a quick 2-minute elevator speech on just basically who you are, where you came from, what you drive now, kind of thing, and then we can get into some more fun stuff.
Yeah, so I started drifting like 4 years ago. I think 2016 16 was kind of the beginning of all of it.
Yeah.
I tried with an 86 Toyota Corolla.
That-
Didn't realize the diff had to be welded. That was definitely a dilemma. The very first event I ever went to was All-Star Bash, and I remember trying to drift the car, but it once again had an open diff.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most memorable parts of this, I was coming around like the top before you go down the long straightaway and huck it.
Yep.
And I'm like wide open, doing probably 40, as fast as I can possibly go in the Corolla. And it's like slowly climbing, and then I hear the weird like whoosh, whoosh, like huh. My car sounds kind of funky, and
Right.
Forrest passed me like full lock sideways, does 2 big manchis, and then just connects the whole thing into the big sweeper. And I was like, yeah, this probably isn't gonna work. And then I watch him go around the track like to the left, and he probably does 4 more corners, and I'm still not even to the middle of the straightaway yet. So
Yeah, no, a little different.
yeah, I realized I had to do something. And then randomly, I had a friend I knew from the past that was next to me in an E36.
Yep.
Another guy by the name of Jeff Groff. He was across from me in an E36, and I used to be a professional stunt rider, so I rode with him.
Nice.
And then fellow Arano came out,
Okay.
and he drives like a yellow one
Okay, yep.
from Pro 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, dude, jump in it. Like, I'll give you a ride. I'm like, let's go. And I've never felt anything over maybe, I don't know, 400 horsepower street car.
Really?
So, and I think he's like 6, 7, 8, 900 horsepower, drift car, which is a very big difference. And I remember having to pump the sprayer bottle in between my legs because it was overheating as we're going around the track. So I was like, oh, is this how they're supposed to be? Okay.
Yeah.
But I just remember that, and like that sold me on the BMW thing. My teammates, Daryl Priono and Nikki, they have BMWs as well. Same with like RJ from Big Duck Club. So
Oh, yeah.
it was easy. I was like, you know what? Let's build a BMW.
Very
And
cool.
I was very lucky that I got into a really good chassis right away.
I've heard,
And
I've heard a lot of good things about the E46s and the E36s and just the structural grip that you have just out of the box almost.
Yeah, well, the mechanical grip is insane because it has trailing arms, and the trailing arms add anti-squat when you grab throttle. So basically what happens is the car, as it rolls back on itself, it pushes the tires down.
Yep.
So it's much different than an S chassis or anything else that's trying to fight for traction.
Yep. Yeah.
So
it sounds like a great. It's like whenever you talk to anyone about what chassis do you want to start in, that's always one of the top of the list. Right up there with the 350Z. And it's because of that reason though. Is like from the factory you already have some great suspension to build off of, and you can get, like you said, you can get traction if you want or need to, with a couple simple modifications and stuff like that. But yeah, so now you're in. You said an E36 is what you kind of were running in.
I drive an E36.
Yep.
I bought it for about $500. It didn't run. The guy was quite unique that I bought it off of. We'll just leave it like that.
All right.
And he basically had a problem to where that it didn't run. He drove it home and he couldn't figure out why it wouldn't start, so he sold it to me very, very cheap.
Yep.
Yes. Upstairs. Yep, there we go. Sorry, my wife was asking me.
You're good.
But anyways, so it didn't really run very well. It didn't run at all.
Yeah.
And I guess the guy got all messed up and drove it home one night and didn't want anyone to steal it because there's no windows.
Yeah.
And he swapped the relays all around. And he didn't remember that he did. So yeah, I got it cheap. Got it for $500.
Yeah.
It was a pile of junk for sure.
Right.
The guy like cut so you know how BMWs have like a beehive style front springs?
Really? I didn't know that. No.
So it's like a beehive style. They go out and then they go back in. So you
Okay.
can't cut them over the car because it creates massive problems.
Correct. Okay, that makes sense.
So he cut them in half anyways, and the big part went over the top hat, so it was just banging on the body. Like the suspension was held up by the body basically.
I'm sure that's good for it.
Man, there's so much stuff going on with this car. I mean, I'm very amazed at where it's at right now. But
so is that still the same chassis?
Same everything, my original chassis, buddy.
No way.
So got in that thing, ripped it around, loved it. tried to do, I think 2000, so that was the end of 16. So 2017 Pro-Am.
Mm-hmm.
Realized I needed more power right away, so then we LS swapped it.
Yep.
I drove 2017 with an LS in it, and almost got my Pro 2 license that year. I think I ended up like 5th in the season, which wasn't bad.
Correct. Yeah.
For the first like full year.
Mm-hmm.
And then came back to 2018 in the same chassis, same horsepower. It's a 5.3 truck motor, like that we pulled out of a junkyard.
Mm-hmm. And
the hot cam in it makes like 370, 365 something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And beat around on it with a T56 that year. This was 18. We also changed to a dog box this year,
okay.
or in 18, which helped out a lot. And then it made it feel a lot better. Have a lot of different gear sets, which made it all work.
Mm-hmm.
And ended up winning the championship by 2 points in the drift, in Top Drift.
Yeah.
And then also won the Drift League by like 100-something points the same year. So kind of back-to-back championships in that scenario, and that was 18, and that's what pushed us on to onto 19.
Yeah, and now kind of where everyone saw the car last year, or what was left of it at the end of the year.
The car wasn't too bad starting out. It had all the panels on it when we started, but after Texas, it made it very, very rough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of my first question. I kind of want to know what happened in Texas and like all the fiasco that you guys went through just to get that car back together. What go into the crash and go into what you guys had to do to bring it back from the dead, basically.
So crash, don't really know what happened. I remember, this is kind of funny, but my spotter told me like, yo, you can go a little bit deeper. Trent hasn't been filling the zone, and me and Trent drive together all the time, so it's not like whatever. So he's like, yeah, you can go a little bit deeper than Trent. He's not filling that outer zone, so you're good to go. So okay, cool. So I kind of left a little gap. Got filled up a little bit with tire smoke going down the straightaway like you always do.
Yep.
When I popped out, I knew I was going to pop out a little bit to the left of him. Mm-hmm. That was good. I was probably half a car deeper than him.
Right.
So I was like, this should be perfect. I still have some room behind me, so I think. Then he goes so deep that he drops the tail light. Almost dropped the almost hit the wall, but just barely sucked off and dropped the end of the tail light.
Stays off of it. Yeah.
And once he stayed off of the wall and dropped the tail light, I'm like, oh, we're in trouble. And I dropped I hit literally almost the middle of the car. The center of the wheel is the first thing that hit.
Wow.
So I was deep. I was half a car deeper than him, and he was a tail light.
And so what speed are you going at, you think, when you're going by those tires?
So we asked Kevin, and Kevin said we're about 80, around high 80s, going through that center section headed towards them.
Wow.
So pretty quick between, I'd say 70 and 90 miles an hour probably.
Yeah, and you go from 0 to 0 real quick when you hit those tires.
There was 16 of us that hit the tires this year.
That's crazy. Yeah. Because, it just spins you around. So, and that's what I remember it doing to you, is just it grabs you and then spins. So what are you thinking in that moment? Are you just trying to so when you crash, do you put your arms together like this, or are you trying to hold the wheel straight, or what's going on?
So
or do you not remember?
I crashed I remember this part because it was kind of weird. So I go in and wham, I hit the wall, and I remember kind of blacking out. Mm-hmm. And then when I come to, my hands are up by my face.
Okay, yep.
Mainly because I learned to get your hands the hell out of the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get them anywhere near or in the wheel, you'll break your arms. Mm-hmm. So get my hands out of the way. So I brought them up by my face, and I pushed the clutch in. And I spun the whole entire time, and then ended up going straight. And I'm like, oh, how, am I dead? What's going on? I kind of look around, and I go to relax, and I stall the car because it was still in gear.
Oh.
But my foot was still my foot was smart enough. Right as I go in, I just clutched in.
Yeah.
And they said that the reason why I didn't break as much suspension stuff or the diff or the quick change or any of the rear end stuff was because I hit with the clutch in, so there's no load on it.
Oh.
Because we didn't break a wheel, we didn't break anything in the suspension geometry at all.
Really? So it was all pretty much body damage.
Well, in the rear. The front, we broke a control arm and tie rod and bent the front type of stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
And then we didn't know, but when I hit, it actually, it didn't bend the rear trailing arm, but it pushed the trailing arm in. So I had excessive toe on toe out. So I had excessive toe out on the left and then normal toe on the right. But they slapped. Basically, we got back to the pits, and everyone's putting everything back together for me. There was like 8 or 9 teams that showed up. Teams that I've never even met them before. They're like, "We'll help you." Yeah. And this was like 10 minutes before opening ceremony for top 16.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So I'm like, oh no! And I'm running around trying to help people grab stuff, and they're like, sit down.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? They're like, sit down, and I'm like kind of flustered, don't really know what's going on.
Right.
And I just remember they're like, oh shit, where's the radiator? I'm like, what? They're like, where's the radiator? And we realized the radiator was still out on track.
What?
And so Brandon, I think it was Brandon and his dad Sorensen, drove back out and grabbed the radiator and brought the radiator and the rest of the parts back from like the grass area.
How did? Because you have a rear mount, right?
Yeah, and it just ejected out of the car.
Wow, that's crazy.
So we got back and they got it all back together. They put it in, fill it up, no leaks. And we're like, oh, this is dope. We go to slam it in. When we slam it in, one of the bars falls down and punctures the front of the radiator.
No way.
And we're like, no. So the mounting tab fell down, punctured the radiator. We're like, oh, man, this is horrible.
Right.
And then Sean Adriana, who we helped out in round 1, changed a tranny on the hot grid, in line, rushed over. JB welded it, hit it with a torch, torched it, fixed it, and that's still the same radiator I'm on right now. So put it back together, got out there, and I'm driving around a little bit. I'm like, okay, it doesn't feel too bad. You let go of the wheel, turns left, but we didn't really have time to really kind of align it.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's all right. It'll be good. No big deal. So we go up, and we're like, I think we're the first battle or second battle.
Yeah.
Anyways, we do a donut one way, and Daryl, my spotter's like, yo, how's it feeling? I'm like, dude, we're good. I go the other way, and it pushes, I'm like, oh no, we're screwed. We're in trouble, man. It doesn't drift right.
That's the first quarter.
Right. It only drifts left. And he's like, the first turns are right. I'm like, yeah, and the walls are right. He's like, well, do the best you can, buddy. Send it. I was like, all right.
Right.
And we went out there and sent it pretty hard.
Yeah.
We did good. So the lead to chase, we were doing good. I think we were still up on Brockaway at that time.
Yeah.
When we swapped positions, though, Brockaway, not having alignment hurt us pretty bad, being towed out down the straightaway.
Yeah.
But he just gapped me down the straightaway.
To be honest, he had a good run there. He ended up getting second in the event that day.
No, and he's a good driver. I think it would have been a lot closer had he not gapped me down the straightaway by 8 cars. And then I got lost in the smoke, and all I remember was my spotter was like, yo, if you get lost, go right. Don't go left. So I got lost. I pop out right, and I was shallow.
Yeah. And
then because I was real shallow there, the judge they said that was my main reason was I came out really, really, really shallow.
Yeah.
And it was just really wonky looking, which, dude, it's all good. I was still impressed with it.
It's still a cool story, though.
It was cool. We still locked in Rookie of the Year that way, so still ended up with that. It did suck, though, because at that moment we were actually leading in points for the championship.
That's right. Yeah, that was crazy. The whole points, how it all laid out was crazy.
Yeah, because I was 2 points ahead of Trent at that moment because I qualified really high.
Yeah. Yeah.
So me and Trent were going back and forth. I'm like, dude, I'll see you in the finals, buddy. And then I stuffed it into the wall instead.
Yeah, and Brockaway ended Denton's day, too.
Yeah, he ended up, second or third that event?
Yeah. Yeah, Brockaway ended up, tearing up and messing everybody up. I was like, what? Where did this come from? But, yeah, no, he drove really well that event. And I talked to Brockaway afterwards, and he was just in the element of learning that new chassis and everything, because that's a really cool car he's got there.
That's a super cool car. Yeah, we drive with him up at Winter Jam, and dude, he's a phenomenal driver.
Is he? That's cool.
Yeah, he's a great driver.
That's cool. Yeah. So where are you located, right? Where do you live? What's your local drift scene like?
So I'm SoCal.
Okay.
So our local drift scene's pretty dope.
Yeah, I mean, it's California, so.
Yeah, I mean, last year I drove 78 days.
Wow.
So quite a bit of days.
That's a lot of seat time.
Well, it's kind of funny. I talked to Chelsea the year before at SEMA and was like, yo, man, how do I get into Pro 2?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, drive a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what's a lot? He's like, dude, try and do like 50 days. I was like, all right, I'm all in. And we ended up just pushing and got so the year that I won both championships, we ended up with like 72 days. And then last year we were like 78 days.
Jeez, oh Pete. And this is all with the one chassis, or do you have another chassis?
I haven't. So the first time was all with one chassis.
Okay.
But last year, halfway through, I randomly adopted another E36.
Nice.
For like $1,000, and it was basically we bought it for one of our like Russian drivers,
mm-hmm.
and then he decided to build an R33 Skyline with us instead.
Okay.
So he's building a super dope like 2J Skyline, and he's like, yeah, I don't know, just sell it. I'm like, well, I kind of own it now, so I guess I'll just keep it.
Nice. Yeah.
And that's Send It Sally.
All right. Yeah. Makes sense. So do you run a shop or work at a shop, or like how does that all kind of work? Because you were kind of telling me a little bit earlier about some of the cool stuff you do. So like,
yeah. So I run and work with a shop called Imagine Garage.
Okay.
We do a lot of just drift builds.
Really?
Yeah, we do a couple time attack stuff, but mostly drift stuff.
So drifting there is that big to where you can run a shop off of mostly drifting.
Yeah, we run the shop totally just off of drifting.
Wow.
We really don't do any kind of like maintenance stuff. I mean, we'll do drift car maintenance, but not any.
You're not going to you to change your oil, you know.
We're not doing oil, brakes, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
Mainly because we run all racing stuff, so we run like Motul oil.
Yep.
And high-end like brakes, high-end all that, so like all the Willwood stuff. So most everyday customers don't need Willwood brakes on their daily.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we like to play in the race car field. I was a diesel tech for Ford for 8.5 years. Okay. So I have like my master tech certification in diesel truck repair, but I did not want to go into working on maintenance. And
I heard that's a nightmare to work on those too, because you got to do anything to the new stuff. You got to take the bodies off the frame and.
Correct. So I got down to I could do heads in a day. Come in early in the morning, pull a cab off a truck, do the heads, put the cab back on the truck, and it'd roll out that night. So
does not sound fun.
I just got burned out, man. Like literally, and I'm not a big guy. I'm like 6'1", but I'm only 150 pounds. Yeah. So the heads are like the same weight as I am. It just. No, it wasn't the business. The hardest thing was torquing them, because they're like, I think they're like 270 foot-pounds, and then 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, which is close to like 400 foot-pounds. And I'm like, I'm only 150.
Right. Yeah. You can't even hang on it and it work. It's just.
No, and most of them, if you're doing them in the cab, you gotta lay on your stomach to torque them. So I'm like, how the hell am I? No, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. So, that's crazy, but it's cool that the industry down there is big enough that you can fund a whole shop off of drifting, which is really cool.
Pretty much the shop and my program is funded strictly just from building race cars.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because I'm not sure if you so I'm in the Midwest. I don't know if you could do that in the Midwest right now. And not to say like drifting isn't big. I mean, drifting is good here, but I don't know. I don't see the level of builds that you're talking about here at nearly as often as what I've heard in California, where it seems like there's an abundance of really high quality builds there.
The difference is you guys, and I don't mean this in a negative or a derogatory way, but most of the guys out there in the Midwest are still running circle track stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's where a lot of the big money is being spent. NASCAR, trophy, trucks racing, all that. Yeah. So that's mainly your guys' market, from my understanding. Now, I don't know. I don't live there, so
I agree. It's definitely
my conversation.
Drag racing's pretty big too here.
Yeah, so that's your main setup out there. Versus here, where I'm physically located, I'm about 10 minutes from Adams, which Adams is a raceway that allows you to drive on Wednesday nights and Saturday nights for relatively cheap, like $20 or $40, kind of like
a test and tune kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
But they have events there, so you can tandem and do different things and hang out.
Awesome.
And then I have Grange, which Grange is about half an hour to 40 minutes from me.
Yep, pretty famous track.
Grange is becoming pretty popular.
Mm-hmm.
You can drive any day of the week on Grange for $50.
What?
Or you can pay $350 for a year membership and drive any day you want for free.
Really?
Yep.
That's so cool.
And then we have Irwindale, the test and tune, the drag strips, and Thursday night drifts.
Yeah.
Then we have California Speedway, which does drifting and different events from there. California Speedway is about 15 minutes from me.
Jeez.
And then we have Bun Willow, which is a little bit farther out, which doesn't do a whole lot of drifting. And then we have Willow Springs, which is about an hour and 10 from me.
Wow, that's
Willow
crazy.
Springs, you can go any day. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks.
Really?
And you can rent out. You can go there and test and tune for like 100. I think it's 120.
And this is on the like actual track, or is it like a sectioned off like different part of it?
No, they have like you can. So Willow, I think it's like $130 for they call it the skid pad, but balcony, so that like big flat like steak looking layout.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's the same price to run the dirt oval, which is a dirt oval with like a switchback in the middle, but it's asphalt in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the Walls, or the Wall Stadium, which is the oval track, and you can drift the oval or Monty, or you can go down through the middle. It's like a mini Irwindale.
Cool.
And then they have Horse Thief, which is the big up and down road course that you can drive as well.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
So the only ones that are more money is if you want to drive Streets of Willow or Big Willow, because most of the time they're already rented out to events.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah, I mean the amount of resources you guys have over there it's really cool to see. Because for me, it's like I got 2 events in Michigan, or two main tracks in Michigan I can go to, maybe like one other one in an off day, and then it's 5 hours south to Ohio or to Indiana or something like that, and it's like so it's a little, everything down over here is a lot more spread out, and like I said, like the level of builds, and that's the biggest thing is people keep telling me about California is just the quality of builds over there just is pretty unmatched compared to anywhere else in the country.
Our Pro-Am is pretty gnarly. Like, we'll have, like, when I was competing in Pro-Am, I think there was 78 drivers registered.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a lot of drivers.
Yeah, I just was talking to Mike Powers, or Mike knows it's Power. I get his name mixed up with someone else. It's Mike Power. Matt
Powers?
Yes. No, it's Mike Power. It's not Matt Powers, it's Mike Power. I get them two mixed up. It's Mike Power. Okay. He came and ran the Pro-Am shootout that was over in California last year. He's coming into Pro 2 this year. But that was what he told me about California, because he drove in California. He drove the one in Vegas, or the one in Colorado that was done by Vegas Drift. Then he did the one in MDU over in the Midwest, and then he did the East Coast one. And that was the thing that he said about California was, like, you guys had the highest quality builds, and it's really nice to have that market and stuff. One thing I have heard a lot, obviously, about California is all you guys' restrictions and stuff. Does that kind of hold you guys back at all, or does it just mean like nobody's drifting on the street kind of thing, or?
So it doesn't mean either one of those. So it doesn't mean holding stuff back, and a lot of people still drift on the street.
Okay.
I don't recommend it, because if you get in trouble on the street here, they, mattering the county you're in, but if they want to be not fun about it, they'll crush the car.
Really?
So they'll crush the car, and you can go to jail, and reckless driving, and reckless endangerment, and yeah, you can do a year jail time the first time and like 3 years the second time. This is if they want to be mean about it.
Yeah.
If you do it in like kind of a controlled area or something like that, then they might just impound your car or something.
Yeah. Are they pretty strict about the modifications though?
It's honestly, it's a person you run into. So
really?
I used to daily drive my LS with green, like the green BMW LS I competed in. I drove it to all the events.
Oh wow.
Like, we drove it to Vegas for for LS Fest, and then won Vegas LS Fest, and then drove it home.
That's crazy.
So we would drive it. I think it's honestly, it's more of like who you are, and I don't mean as a person like, like, oh, your name is whatever. Like this is famous Nate. It's more of, it's like who you are being to that person.
Okay.
So when the cop pulls you over, if you're a dick to them, you're probably not going to it's not going to be very good for you for your day.
Right.
But like we have smog checks even, and I pulled up, and one of the other officers like kind of like stopped me, and I was like, uh-oh. I was like, oh, I'm screwed.
Yeah, right.
He's like, hold on, let these guys go by, and then we'll let you go. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, don't worry about it. He's like, hey, man, what's in it? I'm like, this sounds like a trick question here. He's like, nah, man. He's like, where are you coming from? I'm like, Willow Springs. He's like, nice, man. We run a global time attack up there in a Corvette. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, in that case, this is a 5.3 truck motor swapped out. And he was like, dude, that's dope. I knew it was an LS coming up. So
yeah.
He's like, all right, man, what we're going to do is we're going to let all these cars by, and then I'm just going to, like, let you go on by. I was like, okay, cool.
Nice.
And it's as long as you're trying to do it right, I don't think you're going to have a problem.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the people, like, if you're racing around in a car that's loud and obnoxious, you're probably going to get in trouble.
Interesting. Yeah. Because I feel like that affects a lot more than the car show scene over there. I feel like they would be more affected than...
It is more car show scene, but here's the thing, though. I feel like if you're rolling with a group of cars to a car show, I haven't really seen anyone get pulled over.
Really?
No, it's if you're not being like Fast and the Furious, like...
If you're not being an idiot, they usually...
If you're not being an idiot, it's actually probably maybe better out here because a huge car culture is from here.
That's what I figured.
So it'd be less noticeable for me to drive around with like a hood dump turbo exhaust in like an E36 or something out here with a fully built livery than it would be out there by you guys.
Yeah, that's true.
Like if I drove my street car down the street here, if I drove my pro car down the street here, as long as I wasn't revving and being retarded, I could probably drive it to the market. I could probably drive around and like people would give me thumbs up and be all right with it. But if you go to some of the other like counties, like more in the middle of the USA and stuff, yeah, you probably couldn't even get out of your driveway with my car.
Right.
Or the neighbors call the cops. The cross street neighbor calls yeah.
Yeah, interesting. It's cool to hear from like someone in California because that's what we hear about from all like in the Midwest is all about your guys' laws and how restrictive they are and how you can't do anything to the cars and
they are restrictive and they are there, but it's up to the officer's choice to apply and to do it.
Yeah.
Like a good example, I got in trouble doing like 85 in my Corolla, which was amazing because I didn't even know it went that fast. But 85 in my Corolla, it was super loud and obnoxious, and the officer pulled me over. This is late at night, like 1 in the morning. We're actually coming back from the canyons, but the officer was like, hey, man, what are you guys doing? I'm like, oh, I had to go pick up my girl. Or no, who was with me? Chad. Someone was with me, and I was like, hey, I had to go pick him up. He was out drinking and didn't want to drive home drunk, so, dude, I'm just trying to get home, man. I got to go to work early in the morning. Like, I just didn't want him to get in trouble. And he's like, okay, cool. He's like, dude, what's up? Why is the exhaust so loud? I was like, someone tried to cut my cut off and cut it halfway and tried to steal it. That's why there's a big cut mark in the bottom. And he's like, all right, no worries, man. I said, I'll get it fixed. I wasn't planning on coming out. He's like, no, man, thanks for being a good friend. Like, get home safe. And that was it. Nice. And my Corolla has a 20 valve in it, fully caged, like, no interior, stripped out, race car, loud as hell.
That's awesome.
So, as long as you're not dumb or retarded to them, I don't think they really.
So,
understand.
What's it like drifting an old Corolla? I've heard bad things about them. Like they're just not easy cars to set up and drive.
Oh, they're very difficult. Solid axle, no power steering, no brake assist. Is like raw and low power as you could possibly get to.
Yeah. So it takes a lot of courage, I guess, to drive those cars.
You basically can't lift. If you lift, you have to start the drift over because you can't get back into it.
Right.
Versus when you see people just go straight to like a high horsepower car, you can tell people who've only drove high horsepower cars because of two things. They do a lot of clutch kicking like whoop, 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 and a lot of like throttle, like on off, on off, on off, on off, on off.
Yeah.
And you can just tell because what you notice, well, what I notice, because we do driving instruction as well out here.
Nice.
And what we'll notice right away from people who've only been in high horsepower cars is that when they get in a lower horsepower car, they clutch kick just as much as they can, and the front wheels are going like this the whole time. It looks like they're playing like Assetto with a video game controller.
They're just trying to wiggle it over.
Yeah, they're like sawing at it, because what happens is if you make a throttle input, you have to make a steering wheel input, and then you have to make another throttle input to correct the steering wheel input, which now makes another steering wheel input, which gives you another throttle input. So
you just turn into the guy in the video game that just keeps going back and forth on the road and just can't get the steering wheel right. Yeah. No.
Yeah, so you're literally in drift, and the car's going whoa, 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 and it just never settles because you're on off, on off, on off.
Gotcha.
And then when you see people like Ryan was someone I remember watching and being like, damn, this guy's killing it. Like Ryan Literal, and then someone who people don't even remember was Alex Pfeiffer. And he's the first person I ever really met in drifting. I was doing stunt shows for the drift shows. And, Pfeiffer, he's like, dude, I can make that car drift. I was like, really? He gets in, bends the pedals over, and dude just flat foots, hucks it in to the first corner. I'm like, ah! And I thought we'd die, but it just, no
That's
problem.
Cool.
Just right around the corner. So I was very impressed by what they're capable of, but you just got to be committed.
Is that one of the biggest things that you think's helped you in your drifting career, is driving a low horsepower car to start out with, and learning to drive it that way?
That I think that's a huge factor in my driving and where my driving's at. Also with my understanding of the vehicle. Okay. So a lot of times people, and I just know this because we build them for them, but a lot of times people are like, take my money, build me a badass car. Right. And I'm like, okay, all right. But I didn't have the money when we started at all. So I had the Corolla, and then I drive it to the best ability, and then be like, man, I think I need suspension on it. Well, yeah, I have a 35 or 30-year-old Corolla with probably stock coilovers and shocks that, they stopped leaking because there's no more oil in them. So, I did suspension. Then I noticed what that did. Then I kind of added some angle to it with a manual rack. I have an MR2 that I had to, shim and get it to work. And then and we just slowly added things to make the car better and better. So then when something was not right, I knew directly where to go to on the car. I knew what suspension felt like. I knew what coilovers felt like. I knew what a little more power felt like. I knew what a slipping diff felt like. I knew what a bad brake or a hanging up caliper felt like. I think it helped me kind of elevate my awareness of driving to where I can relay it back to my crew chief and be like, just let him know, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And between the two of us, we're doing pretty well to be able to kind of nail it right away.
Yeah, being able to find the fine-tuning things that you have to do now when you drive the car. Hey, I need a little bit less tire pressure, or hey, we need a little adjustment here to get a little more grip to make the corner or whatever. That's cool.
That's a lot, and I feel it's very, very valuable for me as a driver and as a builder, because now when we set up cars, we can kind of set them up to what type of driving I believe that they're kind of at, or what type of driving they want to be.
Interesting. So, when someone comes to you and they want to build a car, do you talk to them about getting into driving other stuff, or do you talk to them how does the conversation kind of go about, or is it literally just, hey, I want to build this rad stuff, and then you just build it? Or is it depends?
I try and bring as much practicality to it as possible. A lot of people, I'll talk them out of certain things. Talk them out of a hydro at the beginning, or I'll talk them out of different things that I don't believe would support them at the beginning in drifting.
Makes sense.
Things that I think they'd do a lot better if they didn't jump directly into it, and if they kind of work their way up to it. Yeah, I think it'd be a lot better. And even cages and different things, I'll talk to people and people are like, hey man, I want a half cage. I'm like, okay, well what are you using the car for? Oh, drifting. I'm like, well, I don't build half cages in drift cars. Yeah. And they're like, why not? I'm like, because it's a false a false reassurance that, hey man, I'm safe. I got a cage. Well, there's very rare you're ending up on your roof. You're gonna get hit in the door for sure.
Yeah. And you got to think about it too. What can you run that cage in? What series can you run that cage in that you couldn't, beforehand? So it's like, might as well do the full cage because that's what you are required to do any tandeming for most places, and then or any pro-am.
Exactly. So that's one of the big things that I'm trying to make it practical for them. Also, a lot of people want to jump right into real big horsepower. I recommend normally doing suspension on the car first and understanding the geometry of how the car works and drifts and seeing what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
And then from there we can add power. And if it's someone who's like, you know what, I'm really committed, I want to go to like Pro-Am, then I'll be like, great, here's all your suspension. Here's we normally run Weissfab suspension with field coilovers just because that's the most proven setup I've ever felt or seen out there.
Yep.
And we throw that on the car. They go run this thing, and I'm like, once you can drive the track flat-footed, as in you need more power to progress, then we'll LS swap it or 2J or whatever else. And in the process, we'll start putting the motor together. We'll start putting the build together for you, so you don't have a downtime. So a lot of people, I'll be building their dog box LSs or dog box, what's it called, 2Js or whatever they want to build. And then once they're actually like, you know what, I'm ready, let's do it, I can literally swap the whole thing in about a weekend. Really? So it makes it really nice and really practical for a lot of people to be able to do that and to get going with it right away. And to me, the most important thing is seat time.
Yeah.
So I don't want their car down for 6 months because we're trying to find a transmission, or like, hey, here's a iron block, but it needs everything to make it work. It's going to be down for at least 2 or 3 months because I'm ordering and waiting for parts and measuring stuff, and it's going to take some time to get it unless they buy just go big baller and buy a pre-built motor.
Yeah.
But that's not in most people's budget.
Right. Interesting. You make a lot of good points, and that's kind of something that I fell into because I gave my car to a shop a long time ago, and it's still there. But
we make sure that we turn stuff around as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and you reiterate something that's really important for a lot of people to hear is the seat time. The seat time is the main priority for almost any form of motorsport, but especially in drifting because it is so focused on the driver. And it's kind of cool because you don't need the most money to win in this sport. And that kind of is prevalent in drifting, and I feel like I'm reiterating myself because I have this conversation with lots of drivers, and it's all somewhat similar. But I mean, all of you guys have your unique spin. Like for you, for example, you build other people's cars too, and you're able to kind of spread that knowledge to those people and everything, and that's awesome. So who in your drifting career kind of taught you the most? Who was like your teacher? Or was it kind of a learn on the way kind of thing?
It would be levels of learning for sure. So like my teammate Daryl and Nikki gave me a lot of how to drive and how to make it work at the very beginning. They had an LS swap BMW. I didn't. We stole a lot of ideas out of that car to make this car work.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of like the starting point of it. And then we just kind of, as I went up, I just kind of kept looking up of like who's next. And I'd say right now the big people that are helping me out the most would be Odie and Matt Field. Those are the two guys that I'm really spending a lot of time with and strategically working on stuff because Odie knows cars, I mean, more than probably anyone. And suspension setup, he is the man. So I was very blown away about how quickly he could dial a car in and make it just perfect. And Matt, I mean, dude, Matt has an outrageous driving style as well. So it's awesome to work with the people at the highest possible level and just like be able to drive with them. It's honestly an honor to drive with them. They were my idols 2 years ago when I started drifting and saw like Motegi. And I was really influenced by Odie at Motegi and Alex Hilbrun. Yeah. That was the other one I've kind of always looked up to and was like, dude, these guys are nuts.
Right.
And I got something that really kicked my self-belief kind of over the edge was I drove with Hilbrun. He put me in the car at Horse Thief. And I don't know if you know Horse Thief Mile at Willow Springs, but there's a crazy part at the bottom. It goes around like a little water tower, and then you go up the hill. normally you just drive up the hill, turn around, and then wait to go down, and then you just drive down and turn and then start the run.
Yep.
Well, we drifted the normal run, and then he like looks over and kind of like I can see kind of a smile through the helmet. I'm like, uh-oh. And he goes around through the water tower slow, and then he's in third and just upshifts fourth and just flat mats it and can basically go all the way up one Manji and connect all the way to the top of the course. Which,
really?
like my Corolla, I had to downshift to make it up the hill. So the level of speed was insane. And then he'll downshift 2 gears, huck the top, and then upshift third, upshift fourth, and blow past everyone in line sideways, drifting like backwards down the hill to just a giant backy.
Wow.
And I was completely blown away. Like, this is what these cars can do. I'm sold. Let's do this.
That's cool. Yeah, so he, I don't know if you saw it. I assume that was in the gray BMW.
That was in his monster BMW. It was black at the time.
Okay. So now Nick Novak has it, and I don't know if you noticed, but he just got second in clutch kickers before all this stuff went down with that car.
Oh, nice.
So you'll
That's a dope car.
Yeah, you'll see that car in Pro 2 this year.
Oh, that's a way overkill car for Pro 2.
Yeah.
Dope anyways.
Yeah. So that should be interesting. I just drifting's a small world, and I was like, oh, I just saw that car like a couple months ago.
Yeah, it's a super.
Is
cool
Hilbrun ever getting back into it, or you don't know?
He's really into rally racing right now down in Peru, and he's doing really, really, really well. And I believe he's going into the WRC stuff.
Really?
So
that's
I would not be surprised if you see him in WRC like whenever they open it back up.
That man's got a death wish. Like
he is insane. There's definitely some there's something to say about someone who's that throttle committed all the time.
Right. And here's the thing is that some people I don't feel like realize, to me, drifting is one of the safest motorsports you can do. Because it's slower for the most part, not necessarily the pros, but if you're even like pro-am level and like grassroots, you're not going the crazy insane speeds that you would be at even in like even time attack or track racing, where you are going those high speeds, and if something goes wrong, it's usually a whole lot worse.
It is, and I think our cars are built, I wouldn't say more for crashing, but I think we incorporate the crashing aspect into our car, knowing it's going to happen, versus a lot of road racing, they build a cage like just in case. And I think we build stuff like because we know it's going to happen.
Right, there's going to be damage. You're going to be hitting people, walls, whatever. I mean, you got even a lot of program cars nowadays. I see a lot of them are cut up in the rear just because they know that they're going to be hitting things, tapping things, and you don't want your car to be grabbing the wall. You want it to just kind of crush and keep going. So, do you so in your E36, I guess that kind of makes me think of a question. Does it have any kind of unique or fun different things that you've done that you've noticed have helped kind of, that you like to do in your car or your E40 or E36? I'm sorry. You have an E36. I keep saying E46.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't really like the E46. They're the same platform.
I know. Well, yeah, I have a couple buddies that run them, and to me they're a little chubbier.
So I don't like them because I think they look like ugly jelly beans, but that's just my own opinion on it. That's not the truth in any way. A lot of people don't like the ugly box they call my car, so
right.
I'm fine with it.
Well, yours is like on a diet compared to the other one, it feels like.
Yeah, they look like ugly jelly beans to me, and it's funny because they're exactly the same car.
Oh yeah. But
special stuff in my car? Nope, I don't have anything real spectacular. I mean, this year we did go to a 6-speed sequential, which is just like a fun dope factor that I really wanted. But other than that, like in Pro 2, you could duplicate my entire build in Pro 2 for probably under $40,000.
Wow. That's cool. And the thing is like you don't have a budget build though. Like, I mean, it's still good quality stuff. You had a quick change, dog box.
Correct.
What kind of LS setup did you have?
6.0 built by Millennium Motorsports with a Magnuson supercharger on it.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And then we're Wise Fab and Feel coilovers.
So
but
yeah,
that's pretty much the extent of it.
Yeah, it's not like cheap built, but it was well built with not a bunch of bells and whistles that you don't need.
There's nothing else other than that. Like everything else is stock. Like I'm still running stock fuel tank, stock everything. Like it's
really?
Stock. Yep.
Interesting. I'm kind of surprised about the stock fuel tank thing.
Stock fuel tank, stock brakes, stock.
Really?
Stock.
So this is like base model E36 brakes, or is it M brakes? Okay.
No, mine's a 92, middle year 92. It has all 1999 M3 stuff on it now, but legitimately, like brakes and front knuckles and all that are still, and chassis still in 1992 pre-delivery E36 that had 320,000 miles on it.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So
what's a good chassis you like to work on? Like what's a chassis that you found is like different than an E36 or the BMW stuff? What's something that you've seen also work? A lot of people have been
pretty much any chassis we can make work. You just have to figure out the geometry of it.
Yeah.
But there's certain chassis I like, certain things I don't like about certain chassis.
Okay. So like what's something like that?
So like for FRSs, we end up having to fix a lot of front control arm problems because they tear out of the chassis from drifting.
Really?
That stuff's never fun. 240s, just a lot of rack problems.
Yep.
That just kind of common, and they're always a pain because they're tucked up underneath some LS or 2J.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. Like I like the BMW because they're very, very simple to adjust. Like in the rear, I have an upper and lower arm. That's it.
Really?
And like a 240, you have 5 links in the back. So on each side. So there's just a lot more stuff. It's a lot more complicated than other cars would be. So,
that's cool. Awesome.
Sorry if it's loud here for a second.
No, it's all good. That's the point of the shop. You're supposed to have loud stuff, but
yes, always loud toys.
Awesome. So let's kind of get into. You were supposed to run Pro 1. Is Pro 1 still kind of what you're going to try and do this year?
Yeah, Pro 1's ready to go. We've already booked all of our hotels, our Airbnbs. All the flights are paid for. We just got the release yesterday on the dates. So we spent all day yesterday booking flights, so we're ready to go. Camera team's ready to be sent out. Like
nice.
we're ready to rock and roll.
Awesome, man.
We turned the power up too. So last year we made 550 horsepower.
Okay.
In Pro 2, this year for Pro 1 we're about 960 to the wheels right now.
Not bad. Not bad. Should be enough to party with everyone else.
It should be enough, man. And we're trying to lighten the car up too. We were 3,300 pounds last year.
Oh wow. Yep. Definitely.
So we were definitely a heavy. She was heavy. But
nice.
This year we did a lot of modifications, a lot of carbon and fiberglass, or not carbon, just fiberglass basically. A lot of fiberglass to get the weight out of the car and try and drop it down as much as possible.
Very cool. You also picked up some big sponsors this year as well.
We did. We picked up one big sponsor. Then kind of they fell off, and then picked up another sponsor that's just amazing. I couldn't ask for anything more in a sponsor. Really, like it's just.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, Garagistics, our new title sponsor. That is our biggest partnership, and it's a both-way partnership. So they don't have a lot of stuff that they've introduced into drifting yet, but they have amazing stuff for road racing.
Cool.
So that's a big part of their program. They sponsor a road race series, a DTM series in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And a couple other big things. But now they're wanting to get into the drifting scene, and I'm here to basically help support them to develop awesome stuff for the drifting world. And a lot of the stuff you're going to see very quickly for BMW chassis. Oh,
very nice. Awesome, man. Well, is there any kind of final thoughts that you want to kind of give out, or like, what's some like simple advice? I mean, obviously you talk about driving with the suspension first, then go to the power. But is there any other things that you kind of see people messing up on?
I mean, just keep it cheap, or not cheap, but keep it inexpensive so you can continue to drift. Seat time is the most important part.
Yeah, and driving within your means.
Deciding factor. Yes, and the biggest deciding factor is believe that you can do it. Self-belief is huge, and I think in all areas, but especially in the drifting community, I see it lacking. their self-belief that they can do it and keep going.
You think I actually see this a lot. The mental side of drifting is actually a very challenging and interesting concept, especially in competition.
It's going to be the biggest deciding factor, because if you go out there on any given day, any Pro-Am, Pro-2, Pro-1 driver can lay down a solid run. Mm-hmm. But the one who ends up winning normally is the one that mentally has it together.
Yeah. Is there any mental notes that you do, like you do before you go out and run, or is it just like you're out here to have fun kind of thing?
I guess I'm just very grateful that I'm driving at this caliber of people and realizing that no matter what happens, like, we're driving at the top level of a motorsport, and it's still amazing to me. So I'm just very honored to drive with top drivers from all over the world. Yeah. And put on a show for the crowd and really have fun.
That's a really cool mentality, and so how does that not, like, you never get like intimidated by other drivers or anything like that? It's more of like you're just excited to be out there with them.
I'm definitely more excited than intimidated, because I know they can drive. So the intimidation levels, like, there before you ever show up, you're like, yeah, these are the pro drivers, but somehow I made it here, so I guess that means that they said I'm good enough to make it, so let's keep driving. Yeah, so let's do the best. And it's just, I don't know, I don't think that ever comes into play, that I'm intimidated scenario. It's more of a flattery than anything, because I look over, I'm like, oh shit, like, this is Odie next to me, or this is this is Matt Field next to me, like, dude, let's send it. Right. I just get really excited. I think that's what it is.
Very cool. Awesome, man. Well, again, thanks for coming on and doing this real quick. I know you're busy, but
you're very, very welcome.
But I love talking to you, everyone, and hopefully I'll see you out throughout the year. I'll be at all the FD rounds. But you want to give them like give everyone a quick shout out where they can find you at, social media, all that kind of cool stuff.
Yeah, social media is pretty simple. It's Rome CP. We actually just launched a Twitter, and we're doing a lot of like kind of driving on Assetto and putting other drivers together in the off season or the like coronavirus scenario. And yeah, everything, Instagram, Facebook, all that is all Rome CP or Rome Drifts, but most of it's Rome CP.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, again, thank you for watching. If you guys like this, go check him out. He's got a lot of cool stuff. I'm excited to see him run this year. He did amazing in Pro 2. So you kind of came out of nowhere. No one really, I didn't know personally who you were. I was like, who's this guy in this green BMW, like, tearing people up? Like, and then you just come up and do amazing things. So he's going to be a guy to watch next year in Pro 1, or this year, I should say. But again, thanks for coming on, bud, and we'll see you next time.